Hey, what's up guys? So it is roundup time. Today I'm going to be sharing 21 different apps and tools that more or less force you to get your work done. Now, to be honest right up front, none of these apps work quite like that creepy piano in the movie Coraline. None of them are going to make your computer sprout robotic arms that grab your hands and literally make them start typing. But what they do provide are what I like to call training wheels for the brain. Because as I'm sure you're well aware, left to its own devices, your brain is liable to get distracted by cat videos instead of actually doing the work that you have set out to do. Now, over time and with practice, you can build your self-discipline and your ability to focus. But while you're going through the early stages of that process, it's useful to use systems that provide training wheels, be they in the form of helpful limitations, commitment devices, feedback and reports, or literal drill instructors with very little regard for the integrity of your eardrums. So each of the apps that I'm going to share with you today fits into one of those categories, except the last one. And in fairness, I did go and do a search on Fiverr for affordable drill instructors, but that turned up no results. So you're on your own if you want to find your own personal major pain. But before you go looking for one, let's go through these apps, starting with those that fall into the category of commitment devices. What exactly is a commitment device? Well, to put things simply, it's anything that creates a consequence for failing to do the thing that you've set out to do. All the tools in this category aim to make it painful not to do your work, and there are quite a few of these. Let's start with my favorite one, which is Beeminder. It is no exaggeration to say that Beeminder is one of the primary reasons why I have a successful YouTube channel today, because back when I started on YouTube, I used it to commit to publishing a new video every single week. Essentially, Beeminder allows you to commit to a goal, either doing more of something or less of something, and it allows you to put money on the line. Moreover, it's very nerdy and it's all about tracking data, so you can hook it up to tons of different tools, including Apple Health, Strava, Todoist, and IFTTT, which stands for if this then that, which basically allows you to hook it up to pretty much any service on the planet. And due to the presence of all those integrations, the only real limitation here is your imagination, and there are tons of different goals that you can start putting money on in order to make sure that you are more committed to them in the future. But to give you one idea, again, for 3 entire years, I tracked my blog's RSS feed and made sure that I published a new blog post, a new podcast episode, and a new YouTube video every single week. And I had money on the line, so I made sure that I did it. Now, in the same vein is another website called Stick, which is spelled S-T-I-C-K-K, and it's very similar to Beeminder, though it's a little less nerdy. As with Beeminder, you commit to a goal and then you create stakes or consequences in case you fail, and you can actually put money on the line, though it has fewer charts and graphs, and it's generally a little bit less statistics heavy than Beeminder is. But on the other hand, you can set supporters who can watch your progress and a referee who will get an email every single time you log progress and make sure that you were telling the truth. Moving on from there, we have an app with a much more specific purpose called the Most Dangerous Writing app. If you, like me, sometimes have trouble getting started writing, or while you're writing you have trouble with your inner critic silencing you or trying to edit things when you should just be getting thoughts out of your head, then this is an app that you might want to use. Because once you start a session with either a time goal or a word count goal, you have to keep typing. And if you stop typing for long enough, it completely deletes your work. Not only that, but it also has a hardcore mode. And if you check this box and start a session, you aren't going to be able to see anything on the screen except for the last letter that you typed, because when you type letters, they flash on screen, but everything else is blurred. And this, once again, silences that inner critic. It makes you just get things out of your head and edit later. All right, so now let's talk about the Strides app. And the reason I put this on the list isn't because it forces you to work by putting money on the line or anything like that, but it does take advantage of what's been called the Seinfeld Strategy. The comedian Jerry Seinfeld is famous for having honed his joke writing talent by making sure he wrote a new joke every single day. And to track his progress, he would mark it off on a calendar on his wall. And because he could see that calendar, he didn't want to break the streak. He had this visual reminder of his progress that he didn't want to tarnish. So this don't break the streak strategy can be very powerful because we humans like to be consistent in our behavior and we don't want to see those chains broken. Now, while you could definitely use a calendar on your wall to do this, that's not an app, so it doesn't belong on this list. And while you could use any habit tracking app in the world to do it as well, because almost all of them show your streak, I do want to give a specific shout out to the Strides app, because in that particular app, when you're creating a goal, you have the option to create a goal for your streaks. So instead of just watching it count up to infinity, you can actually set like a 30 or 60 or 90 day streak goal, which means your 30-day challenges can become that much more official. Next up, we've got Coach.me, which used to be called Lyft back when I started using it as a college student, but now it's called Coach.me because it has a big focus on, you guessed it, coaching. Now, Coach.me does have a habit tracking app that's very similar to a lot of others out there, but what I want to highlight in this video is their coaching services, because if you were one of the people who listened to the intro of this video and did want your own personal major pain, wanted your own personal drill instructor, this is probably the closest that you're going to get for not a whole lot of money, because they've got personal coaching services for building new habits and staying productive for about $15 a week. A lot more expensive than everything else on this list, but if you do want personalized coaching and you don't have a friend who could be an accountability partner, this could be an option. Of course, another option could be to use the entire internet as your accountability partner, which is what I've done by essentially rolling my own commitment device using Google Sheets. So a couple of years ago, I set a goal for myself to read 25 pages of nonfiction every single day for 3 months without fail. And while I did have an accountability partner in real life, I also wanted to make my goal public, and I wanted people to be able to track my progress over time. So I created a public-facing Google spreadsheet, which tracked the book I was reading and how many pages I read every single day, and then I made it public on my website so people could call me out if I failed to read. And the last tool that I'm gonna mention here in the commitment devices section is something that you might not have expected. I'm gonna mention Discord and/or Skype as a commitment device. Now, for those of you who don't know, Discord is an app that is primarily used by gamers to chat with each other either by voice or by text, and it's a very cool app. In fact, we have a College Info Geek official Discord, which you can find in the description down below. But I'm going to suggest using the voice chat feature here to set up what I like to call a work group. Back when I was in college, I set up one of these with a couple of blogger friends who each lived in different states. And every once in a while we would get on Skype, we'd be on a call, but we wouldn't talk to each other. We would simply be on the call and be working. And this was in order to simulate the experience of sitting in a room with study buddies or accountability partners, getting work done, and just getting the motivation from knowing the other people were also getting their work done. So even though I wasn't physically in the room with my blogger friends, I knew that on the other line of that Skype call, even if it was silent, was somebody who was getting work done. And that made me more motivated to do my work as well. Category number 2 on my list are the apps that provide what I like to call helpful limitations, or to put it another way, apps that block you from doing specific things. And a lot of the apps in this list are going to be website and application blockers, and I did talk a lot about those in my internet distractions video, so I do recommend going and watching that for some more in-depth tips regarding those. But here I'm just going to recommend them if you haven't heard about them. And the first one I have to talk about is my absolute favorite website blocker in the world, which is Freedom. Now, there are lots of other apps out there, but Freedom is the only one that works on all the platforms that I use and reliably blocks everything that is a potential distraction for me on a daily basis. Now, while Freedom is by far the most convenient of the website blocking apps because it allows you to find all of your blocks and schedules from a universal dashboard that goes out to all of your different devices, it does have a monthly cost. So if you want to pay less money and maybe have a little bit more inconvenience, then the following apps could be good substitutes. First up, if you're on a Mac, you're gonna wanna get the app Self-Control, which is free and for Mac only. And if you're on Windows, you're gonna wanna go for Focal Filter, which is again free and it is Windows exclusive. On the iPhone, there's an app called Block Distracting Websites for about $3, though near the end of this video, I'm gonna talk about a new feature in iOS that may supersede this app and make it obsolete, so stick around for that. And for those of you on Android, there's a free app called BlockSite that does the same thing. There is also an app for Android, iOS, and Chrome called Forest, which is not really a website blocker, but can kind of function in the same manner. Forest helps you avoid using your phone in distracting ways by allowing you to grow a tree as long as you don't exit the app. If you do though, you kill the tree. Same with the Chrome extension, if you go to any of the sites on your blacklist, you're gonna kill that tree that you could have grown had you just stayed away from them during that time. And of course, over time, you get to see your progress in the form of a virtual forest growing up on your phone or in your browser. And if you wanna keep that forest nice and healthy, then you are not going to be distracting yourself. And in a similar vein to Forest, I'm going to mention literally any Pomodoro app. Now, I debated whether or not to put Pomodoro apps on this list because they really don't explicitly do anything to force you to do your work, but I just had to add them because they're so effective for me. Once I start a Pomodoro session and I have committed to doing one single thing, I am so much less likely to go do anything else but that one task. And if you want a recommendation, my absolute favorite Pomodoro app is one called Tide, which is on the iPhone and Android, and I like to actually put it on my phone screen, put the phone screen on the desk and leave the screen on during those Pomodoro sessions. That way I can actually see the timer the whole time. Rounding out our section on helpful limitations are a couple of apps that help you write more effectively, starting with Cold Turkey Writer, which essentially locks your computer down completely until you've hit a writing goal of either word count or minutes written. It's very much like the most dangerous writing app, but instead of deleting your work, it just doesn't let you do anything until you've actually done that work. Alongside that is another writing app called Blurt, which isn't so sadistic as the most dangerous writing app or Cold Turkey Writer. It won't lock down your computer, it won't delete your writing, but it does have that feature which blurs every line except for the one that you're currently working on, which can, again, help to silence that inner critic and help you actually keep writing. That brings us to our final category in this video, which I like to call feedback and reports. None of the apps here force you to do anything actively. They don't make you put money on the line. They don't block sites, but they do show you in naked, embarrassing detail what you've been doing with your time. And the first one that I'm going to list here is one called Toggle, which is an active time tracker where you actually have to start a clock and tell it what you're going to be doing during that time. Now, as with Pomodoro apps, I find that using manual time tracking apps makes me more likely to do the thing I set out to do because I've set a timer and I've intentionally started that process. But this also lets you take advantage of what's been called the Hawthorne effect, which describes how people tend to change their behavior for the better when they know that they're being observed or tracked. And in my experience with manual time tracking, I found that this tends to happen even if you're the one doing the observations of your own behavior. Now, if you happen to find that Toggle is not the time tracking app for you, don't worry because there are dozens of other ones out there. And I do want to give an honorable mention to one called Clockify, which is completely free. Now, Toggle's personal features are also free, so they're pretty comparable for anybody wanting to use them on a strictly personal basis. But any of you guys out there managing teams, you might want to give Clockify a look. Now, both of those apps are built around manual time tracking. We are now going to move over to automatic time tracking with apps like Rescue Time. As you may have gathered from the previous sentence, Rescue Time and other apps like it automatically tracks the time you spend on different websites and applications, categorizes that time as productive or non-productive, and then gives you reports on how you've been spending your time. And these reports can be very eye-opening because you may think you know how you spend your time, but how you think you spend your time is probably very different than how you actually spend your time. And it can be pretty surprising to see just how much time you waste watching cat videos and not actually getting your work done. Now, alongside Rescue Time and apps like Timing and Hours and other things that are very similar, there is another app I want to mention called Why Productive. And I'm adding this to the list because it does what Rescue Time does, but it also allows you to create daily project and task lists. So it kind of combines multiple productivity features into one. And finally, before I tell you the apps on this list that I use personally, the last item that we have to talk about is something called Screen Time, which is a built-in feature in iOS 12. So if you're using an iPhone, you might not need an automatic time tracker or a website blocker because this thing can do both of those things. It'll tell you where you're spending your time on your phone, how many hours, and you can also set up, number one, apps that are gonna be blocked, and also something called downtime hours, which are specific hours where you can't access any apps whatsoever except for ones that you put on a specific whitelist. So that brings us to a question that I'm sure that many of you are likely to have, which is, out of all the apps on this list, which are the ones that I use on a daily basis myself? Well, for those of you who are wondering, those apps include Beeminder, which I mentioned at the beginning of this video as one of my favorite apps and one of the things that let me build this YouTube channel in the first place. Additionally, I also use Strides, which is the habit tracker that I'm currently using and very much enjoying, the Tide app, which is my Pomodoro tracker of choice, Freedom to block distracting websites on my computer and my phone, and Rescue Time so I can get those reports and see just how much time I'm wasting on a daily basis, and hopefully to reduce that in the future. Of course, there are many other apps that I use to get things done, many productivity apps that don't quite fall into the category of things that force me to get my work done, but that do build systems or allow me to do things much more efficiently. And one of the apps that you guys have been asking me a lot about in the recent past is one called Notion, which I use for many different things, including managing these video projects. Now, Notion is incredibly flexible and powerful. It's done a lot to improve my workflows, and it could potentially be a very useful tool for you, possibly even a note-taking system of choice. But a lot of you guys have told me that Notion is also very complicated and you don't quite know where to start. So if you find yourself in that camp or you want to learn how to set up a very efficient workflow really quickly, I'm going to recommend that you take my friend Francesco's Notion course over on Skillshare. Francesco is an absolute expert when it comes to productivity apps, and this course is a great resource for figuring out how to get the most out of Notion. Of course, while you're on Skillshare, you might also want to take my friend Mike Vardy's course on time theming if you want to become even more productive, and that's a skill that'll help you no matter what apps you're using on a daily basis. And in case you don't know, Skillshare is also an amazing resource for learning new skills across a ton of different disciplines because they've got over 22,000 courses in topics ranging from business to marketing to storytelling to digital animation to even music production. What's more, Skillshare is incredibly affordable with a premium subscription costing less than $10 a month. And even better, if you click the link in the description down below, you can get a 2-month free trial with unlimited learning on the platform. You can learn a lot in 2 months. So if you want to start learning some new skills or increasing your productivity or digging into Notion or any of the other app tutorials on the platform, and you want to support this channel, then click the link in the description down below and sign up. Big thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video and being a huge supporter of this channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you found this video helpful. Hopefully it pointed you to something new that can help you become more productive on a daily basis. And if it did, or if you just enjoy me talking out of your computer screen, then hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss new videos coming out every single week. You can also get a free copy of my book on how to earn better grades right over here. Follow me on Instagram at TomFrankly, or check out one more video on this channel right around here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.